You just press play on the Last Breath Huntcast, home of the Huntroversy. We're here to entertain, educate, and engage. And in case you didn't know, you only live once. But if you do it right, once is enough. Don't waste it. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to episode number 90 of the Last Breath Huntcast. Today, my guest is going to be Garrett, and we're going to be talking all things reaping turkeys. So this is just a reminder that every single Monday, you can listen to a new episode of our podcast on iTunes, Libsyn, and Spotify. Also on Facebook, if that's the way you listen. And every Wednesday at 11 o'clock, you can listen to the Whitetail Legacy podcast, which is our partner podcast, at 11 o'clock. On all of their channels. This podcast is presented by two pretty cool people. The first that we'll get into here is Badlands Gear. So Garrett, I know what your favorite piece of Badlands Gear is, but what's the next piece of Badlands Gear that you want in your pack or at home on your shelf in your garage that you're going to be using next?
So if it wasn't for my Bino D-Mag, the next probably like underrated, most favorite piece of Badlands gear that I have is the neck gaiters. I think that that's something that sometimes gets overlooked. I really like not only the concealability of them, I like that they fit very well, but as far as a heat containment thing, neck gaiters go way underrated. Even having that lightweight, the Algus one, throw it on, pull it on, and it kind of just stuffs that hole between your jacket or your hoodie and letting all your body heat escape. So, in those November and December, January hunts, something to consider, even, like I said, even one of those lighter weight ones. Now they have the new, I think it's the Fire or the neck gaiter.
Smokestack?
Smokestack.
Something like that.
Something like that. Now that one's like super duper hot, but for me, I just need the standard gaiter and it works well. Like I said, they're comfortable, they breathe well, and it's what I will always have one of those with me.
That's a good point. So you would rather wear a gaiter than face paint?
Oh, 100%.
We used to dabble in face paint a little bit way back in the day.
I'm not saying that face paint doesn't work. It's just...
I'm sure it does.
Yeah.
I just don't like taking it on and off. That's my thing.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I do think that there's maybe some placebo effect, kind of like, putting on some face paint or putting on some eyeliner underneath your eyes for a football game, that kind of that mental stimulation, like going into war. But for me, I like the convenience of it. I think that you have the added benefit of holding your heat in, holding your scent in, and then you don't have to go home and scrub your face.
Right. Also, the other partner of this podcast is Underwarmer. So this is a heated lace base layer. You can wear it next to your skin. They can be found at underwarmer.com, and we think this is one of those products that if you are interested in it and you go out on a limb and you buy one, I think it's one of those things where you're going to be like, man, I'm surprised by this. I actually was listening to a podcast the other day on the way to work, and one of the guys that was on there said that he has before taken duct tape and hot hands taped little hot hands packets to his back, like lower back, like to his kidney area.
Yeah.
So that way his back doesn't get cold, because I feel like that's the first place that like air gets in is right there on your lower back and starts chilling you down. And he was saying that he duct taped hot hands to like a shitty old t-shirt or something like that to try to keep him warm. And I was like, I sent him a message. I'm like, dude, you should check this out. And it'll keep you warm. And it's a pretty cool product that we think I know that I'm going to be wearing one this fall just because it's going to be able to cut down the amount of layers that I'm going to wear. So check those guys out at Underwarmer.com.
They're comfortable.
Yeah,
I mean, they're literally comfortable. It's like putting on like a heated blanket.
Yeah.
So how interesting is that? A guy was trying to kind of jimmy rig up his own version of the Underwarmer.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I sent him a message and was like, hey, man, you should check this out. But that kind of gets us out of that and into our topic for today, which is how to kill more turkeys by reaping them. So we're going to go ahead and get on to the first question I have for you. And the first question I have is, what do you think is the best setup for reaping turkeys? Let's talk about your camo first. I know that's going to fluctuate with turkey season just because of what time of year it is, and it's could be so cold, it could be so hot. But talk to me about a standard turkey season where we're not battling snow in Illinois.
Right.
What kind of camo are you wearing?
So turkey season, especially in the Midwest, it is, and definitely in the first 3 seasons, those early parts of the season in April, it's pretty chilly in the morning, similar to like what we're going to have today. We're going to have a high of 65, but driving over here this morning is around 32 degrees. And so you'll have that, especially, like I said, in those early seasons of turkey. But then once the sun comes up, boy, it warms up pretty quick. And for me, I am the type of guy that I would rather be slightly chilled for the first hour of the hunt and then comfortable the rest. But that's because I know what's to come. So my wife, being different than me, right? She'd layer up and she doesn't want to be cold at all. She'd rather be hot during the second half of her hunt. So I always take that into consideration when I'm dressing for that turkey hunt or the day. What's the daytime high? Is it going to be sunny? Is it going to be cloudy? Is it going to be windy? Because I would rather be chilled in the first part, but during the second half or the majority of the hunt, I'd rather be comfortable. And when it comes specifically to reaping, you have to consider that it's a lot different than whitetail hunting. It's very similar to like the Western style hunting where you're active. So if you layer properly or dress accordingly for that morning low, you're going to be pretty hot, especially if you got a belly crawl or creep or crouch to go get a bird. So when it comes to gear, I'm staying pretty minimal. I really like the Rise system from Badlands. I prefer to stick to the standard approach because it has more of the greens and the whites in it rather than the browns and the grays. Spring is usually going to be, those lighter greens and those,
especially after third season.
Those paler colors. And then when it comes to reaping, sometimes if I know I'm going to reap and it's going to be 100% reap, then I'm not afraid to throw on a black or a dark pullover on top, just because that way there's not that stark contrast between the decoy or the fan and my top, my upper body. But when it comes to, like I said, when it comes to camo, just don't overdress if you're going to be reaping, or you'll be sweating like a rat in a wool sock.
Especially just because there's lots of turkeys that we've reaped before where it's been a long reap, like you're talking. It's not just like throw the decoy up and here they come motoring in. Sometimes it works like that, and that's the best kind of time. But there are times where you've been out in the field and you've gone a couple hundred yards just scooting along there. And, after the sun's been beaten down on you, because we're typically talking about a midday kind of thing,
Right.
Usually we reap if we strike out with turkeys off of the roost. We set up on the roost or near the roost enough to the point where we're like, all right, I feel confident the turkeys are going to pitch down here and end up working here. But if they don't, then we're going to grab the reaping decoy and go for it. So you have to take into consideration what you're saying about time of day. Typically, this is an activity that's going to take place like after 8 o'clock when it starts warming up. And if it's 70 degrees and you're crawling through an open flat bean field, like belly crawling behind a fan, or
you're just
you've got
in
a decoy, you're going to be hot.
You're in an uncomfortable position. It's a lot different than just walking across the field, right?
Yeah.
So, yep.
Your boots.
I know that, knee-high rubbers are really popular, especially in the Midwest. But during turkey season, again, especially encompassing reaping, I really prefer to have ankle-high lace-ups, more of a hiker than like an insulated boot. Just allows you to be more nimble.
Like, remember the
feet.
Titans, agile, hostile.
Yep. So, I would wear either, like I've got a pair of Columbia hikers that are nice. They're super lightweight. They're not very warm, but again, don't need them to be. The only caveat to them is that they're not waterproof. They're designed to let the water run through them. They're more of like a mountain hiker. Not ideal for those real dewy mornings. I'll probably be wearing my Crispies more than anything come this spring.
Okay. The decoy itself, let's talk about that and what the reaping setup that we have is and what other setups are out there for somebody that has not reaped a turkey yet before. There's a couple different ways. So talk about ours first.
Yeah. I would say we probably have 3 different decoys, if you would, for reaping. The first one is a dried fan. We we do our own fan mounts, and we separated them, dried them, hot glued it together. And that's kind of like the minimalistic decoy. The benefit to just using a fan is that it's just a fan. I mean, you can carry it easy. It's lightweight, takes up no room. You can throw it on the weeds and it's hidden. You know, there's good things that come with just, like I said, hunting with a fan. The bad thing is that it's only a fan. That's it. There's no other things to hide behind. You don't have any other visuals. You just have the fan. And that being said, I've killed turkeys with just only a fan before. And I've reaped turkeys with just only a fan before. And in certain situations, it's great. You know, there's even been times where I'll like pop the fan out of our strutter decoy and go after one. And that's because, again, it's so light and convenient that allows you to do some stuff that, especially when you have like severe topography change or it's super thick. I mean, super thick. You gotta remember, turkeys see everything. You can get away with using a fan. The next thing that we have is kind of like we call him Timmy, and he is like a flat decoy, and I believe Avian makes it. It's actually
he's an Avian wall mount.
Yeah,
I've looked that up. It's actually not for reaping turkeys.
No.
It's to hang up on a wall.
Right. It's like to take your turkey fan to the next step.
Yeah.
So what that is like Grant was saying, it's like a 2D. It does have some 3-dimensionalness to it, but for the most part, it's only about 3 inches thick. It's kind of like a shield, and you stick your fan in it. I even hot glued a real beard in it, and then I put a metal hook off the side so you can rest your gun on it, and I put a stake through it. So when you hold it, you can hold it by the stake, and you can set your gun on there. But then if you need to, you can stuff it in the ground and go hands-free. That's our next setup. It's kind of like in between
This is the middleweight.
Teddy and the fan, because it gives you, again, probably 50% more visual barrier, like something to hide behind, because it does have that silhouette of the turkey. It's got the red head. It's got some other cues that you can use. Again, the convenience factor is that you can set it down. It's flat, and now if you don't want it to be seen, it doesn't have to be seen. It's not quite as packable or as lightweight as a fan, but probably serves its purpose. I know that a couple of years ago, Jesse and I were hunting down on one of our turkey leases, and I had Timmy just sitting there next to me. We had a gobbler that came into the field and didn't want anything to do, so I just picked him up and started to rotate him, and that's all it took, right? I don't know if I would consider that a true reap, as it was like, flash him.
Yeah. And let's go back to talking about the fan for a second. So the reason we bring our fan on virtually every hunt that we go and set up in the morning is just in case that happens. Like we've got a turkey that plays ball. He comes out into the field. He sees our decoys, but then he needs something a little extra. Our last-ditch effort will be, fan him. Flicking the fan up to see if we can get him to cruise in and cut that distance so that way we can get a shot opportunity. But then after that, we've got that avian decoy that you were talking about that we call Timmy. And to give you guys an idea of what Timmy looks like, he kind of is about the size of a large basketball, or like a large medicine ball or something like that. So it's a turkey from the breast to the head without a fan. So if you can picture a turkey coming in its front profile just without the fan. So you'll take your fan and you'll stick it in there. And so you've got a lot more concealability, because a fan itself, just straight up, it's hard to hide behind just a fan. There's definitely videos of people doing it with just a fan. You've done it. So definitely possible.
And that's why I was saying, I think the fan will work, especially if you have like rolling hills or if you got deep cuts, like
when
that.
You can conceal your body.
And it's great, right? It's lightweight. Logan's killed a turkey with the fan, but again, looking at the situation, if you watch the videos, like that one that I reaped over on the power lines, I climbed up a hill. He didn't see my body at all. Like I literally was belly crawling, holding the fan.
Yep.
And all he saw was the tips of the feathers, and he saw the secondaries, and he saw the fronts, and I stopped, and he came right to me. I didn't give him any more. So, moving on to Teddy. Teddy is he's prized possession. Yeah, he's the heavyweight hitter. I'll start with the negatives though about Teddy, and that is he's a full-sized turkey. He is hard to store. I mean, he's hard to bring around. He's fully feathered. I mean, he's got a full fan. He's legit. So it's not like something you're thinking about this kind of stuff, it's not something you can just toss in the back of your truck bed, because the wind would just absolutely wreck him. If you had him in the back of your truck, he'd blow out for sure. He doesn't weigh hardly anything. But so like you got to like manipulate him into the back seat of your truck and get him all in there nice and fine, and then shut the door.
It's like having a toddler with you hunting.
Kind of, yeah. And then when you carry him, there's, he's designed to reap, so he's got a grip in the back, but there's no other way to like carry him around. And he's not heavy, but he's awkward. So, if you have to legitimately carry him for 4, 5, 6, 800 yards in some of the places that we hunt, we do. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if you don't get a little fatigued, just because, think about holding a 3-pound weight, about like this.
Yeah.
Not fully extended out, but not next to your body, because he's a turkey, and just think about that. Carry, I could do that, no problem. It's like, it adds up.
After a half a mile or
After
so,
walking across a plowed field or through timber for, So that's the negative side of him, is that the fact that, he is a full strut turkey. And if you guys haven't seen a mount of one, I don't know, it's like 1 cubic yard almost. It's like 3 feet by 3 feet by 3 feet.
Yeah.
And the other bad thing about Teddy is that there's no hiding him. You take him in, the birds are gonna see him whether you want him to or not. Like, he's as legit as it gets. Now, the great thing about Teddy is that he is legit as it gets.
Yeah.
So if a bird does see him, it's as good as you can get without strapping an RC car to the bottom of it and making him move and dance. The other great thing is that he's like I said, the size of a full turkey. So to hide behind it as a hunter, you have more than any other decoy I've ever seen. So when we made him, I took real wings, dried real wings, and I actually stuffed foam behind him when I fastened him to the decoy shell. And his wings, when he's in strut, are just slightly fluffed out. They're not quite straight down as like a normal tom would be in the field. And all that does is just puts a little bit of an angle on those wings. So now when you're behind Teddy, you've got kind of a wing shooting at, I don't know, like a 25-degree angle off one side and off the other side. And it really allows you to kind of get away with some of those quartering angles when you got to pick up and move the bird. So you can get tucked right in behind him. But
let's talk about what you made Teddy out of. For those people that haven't watched us use Teddy to reap a turkey before, how'd you actually construct Teddy? Because realistically, I mean, this can be done for like $80 to $100. Like, it's not very
cheaper than that, I would say.
Yeah, it's what we're talking about doing here is not an expensive feat. It's not like buying a DSD turkey decoy, and it might be better than one. So,
debatable for this application for reaping. Yeah. So, Primos, our first turkey decoys that I bought was the Peepin' Tom decoy, and I believe Primos made it. And it's just a plastic molded. Boy, I bet that decoy is at least 15, maybe 20 years old now. I mean, I'm thinking like it was seasoned when I got it.
Yeah.
So it was a shell, plastic shell.
We're talking like $18 decoy here.
Yeah. Yep. And I decided, I was going to do this. So like case skinning coyotes or coons or foxes, I knew how to case skin out animals. And I was like, man, you got to be able to do this with a turkey, right? So I looked up a couple taxidermy videos, and some taxidermists did case skin out their birds for when they mounted them. So I took the fan off, took the wings off, and I case skinned this turkey, this tom that I had shot, I don't know, years ago. And the hard part, I'll just tell you right now, is like when you flesh like a furred animal, the hide is really malleable and it's smooth. So when you go to scrape it and flesh it, it's tedious, but it's not terrible. With turkeys, you have all the feathers. So if you guys have ever, I don't know, maybe if some of the listeners ever skinned out a pheasant or something along those lines, or like when you breast a turkey out, you'll see like those little dimples on the back of the skin. And so when you go to scrape it, you just constantly like, brrr, brrr, so there's a lot of painstaking time in cleaning it out. So I case skinned this turkey, defleshed it, and then you can actually use lighter fluid or kerosene to kill all the fat. Like, I shouldn't say kill it, but it actually dissolves a lot of the fat. So after you get it case skinned, after you get it fleshed, let it kind of dry to where that there's going to be some yellow fat, and it gets kind of tacky, and you want to make sure and just rub it all down and clean it up as much as you can. Full disclosure, turkey skin is very thin, so you have to be careful. Like, it is I don't even know.
So thin that you could, try to, the comparison between a whitetail and a turkey when you're skinning them is, I bet a whitetail is about 5 to 10 times thicker. Just think about the fact that when you're, for us, if we're in a pinch and we have to do it fast to breast out a turkey, we can grab the skin and rip their skin apart in half.
Yep.
You're not going to do that with a whitetail, so keep that in mind when you're skinning it out, that skin is just paper thin.
Mm-hmm. So I've got this turkey case skinned out. And, I got it cleaned up. I did a heavy borax salt kind of tanning method. I just wanted to dry and not be stinky. The key is that I didn't want it to dry hard, because once it fused up, man, then you're screwed. So took the peep and tom decoy, turned that turkey back inside out, and I stretched it right over the decoy. So once I got it situated to where, the neck was where the hole, where the peep and tom's head was and everything was situated, I took a staple gun and would move all the feathers and fixed it to it. The wings are a little bit trickier because you have quite a bit of meat in the wings, especially in the joints and areas. So you got to turn the wing over and really take your time to clean those out very well. And you want to make sure that you pin them in the situation that you want. So you don't just open them straight up. So you have to kind of like hold them, put them on the decoy and see, because you want to make sure that the tips of the feathers are just at the bottom of that decoy. And do your time, scrape all the meat out, salt it, clean it, pin it, and let it sit. And they will fuse together. They'll dry together. The tallow and the tendons and everything will just dry it hard as rock. Mm-hmm. So punch a couple holes through the decoy, zip tied the wings to the decoy, and then you have the fan that goes in the back, which the decoy already has. Like, the peep and tom decoy already has a cut for the fan to go in. Easy enough. The next more difficult thing, if you will, was creating the leg structure, because you want to be able to like pick up and set them down. So I just got 1/4-inch rolled steel. You can buy this at any hardware store or whatever, and literally just started bending it to make a frame for the bottom of this decoy. Once I had a structure made, then we just zip tied it kind of into place, tacked it then with welds, and now it's got like a 3-legged structure, so that way you can pick it up and set it down and you're good to go. And then the final little touch is finally installing the grip in it. So I took probably
14, 16-inch piece of 2x4 and screwed him, the peep and tom, kind of like if you've ever seen the St. Louis Arch, the back of a peep and tom is open. So you basically took a 2x4 and you screwed it to both sides of the decoy, so that way you had that rigidity to it. And I do think it makes Teddy a lot stronger and less flimsy. And then on the bottom of that, you got your big dowel rod.
Yeah, the pistol grip thing. So, yeah, it's all ingenuity, engineered right here in lovely Andalusia, Illinois. A little bit of redneck engineering, and we turned. I guess we birthed Teddy. So, he's definitely been a big asset for us. And like I said, the biggest thing is that he's fully feathered, so you get all the iridescence off of those feathers when the sun hits it. You get that real live motion when the wind picks up or blows, like you have the fluttering of the feathers in the fan. And you have so much to be able to get away with when you're behind him. It literally, the last 3-4 birds that me and you have reaped have been in a wide open field. Wide open, flat pancake field. And the proof's in the video, man. You can watch us scoot up to them and slap them.
Okay, so speaking of scooting up and slapping them, the distance. So at what distance should you start thinking about reaping? What's too close? What's too far? What kind of things are you looking for personally to say, okay, this turkey is reapable? What is a reapable turkey in what kind of position?
I mean, boy, that's hard to just nail down. I think any bird that you want to reap, the number one thing I think when it comes to reaping a turkey is you have to see it before he sees you. So oftentimes, we'll be able to catch a strutter from a long ways away, maybe from a back road, or maybe we'll hear one fire up and we're like, oh, he's in that back
And when you say a
pasture.
long ways away, what do you mean by a long ways away? Can you quantify that? There you go.
Mile, half mile, I mean far.
Far.
You got to understand that the turkey's number one defense mechanism is its eyes. They have incredible vision, so they have to assume that you're far enough away that you're not a threat. And then you have to get in tighter to them. Like, we don't start reaping from a mile away. Goodness, that would be terrible.
Mm-hmm.
But you got to, okay, there's a strutter, or there's turkeys, or you either seen them or you heard them and you have a great idea of where they're going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have to be able to get into position without them seeing you. The trick to reaping is to kind of get in to their comfort zone. So a strutter's usually going to strut because he's got hens. And especially if he's an aggressive bird, he's not going to want any other toms around, or he's going to have like his couple buddies that he can tolerate with, which they're like the bully squad,
Mm-hmm.
So you want to be with reaping. It's not just here's Teddy, we're throwing him out and going. We always try to get as close as we can until we reach that minimum distance where, okay, like now I'm 150 yards away. There's no other way to get across this field other than just to go. I've walked up the waterway, or I've cut through the timber or the logging road or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And like within the next 10 yards, I will be exposed. That's when the reap begins. So you cut the distance down as far as you can, use any topography or any foliage to let you get there as close as you can. And then that's when you present the reaping decoy, whether it's your fan or your shield or your decoy, whatever you're using. And from there, you'll be able to probably figure out really quick. I always start them off slow. It's not a charge. It's kind of like you're feeling the bird out. So that first time that he sees you, i.e. the reaper, you'll be able to kind of tell quickly how he's going to respond. We've literally had birds, as soon as they see it, like off to the races. I'm talking velociraptors with a rocket strapped to their ass coming straight for you.
Yep.
And then we also had them, we knock on wood, we never had one like look and run away. That's because you got to be smart about it, right? And you have a good decoy. But we've had them like where they just like, they acknowledge it. You'll see them strut a little bit, or maybe they'll come out of strut. They know they see you, but then they go back to doing their normal thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because of them, you're just a normal turkey, And then from there, that's kind of when the dance begins. So I would say more times than not, especially if a tom has got hens and he's strutting for them, he probably won't break stride if you're 150, 200 yards away. You're not quite close enough to be a threat yet. So that's where you start moving. And I just take my time. I mean, unless the birds are working away really far or fast, I'm just going to pick a landmarker. I'm going to go to the next corn stalk or that next thistle or whatever it is. Go sit down, give myself a breather, check the birds, make sure the hens are fine, make sure he's doing his thing, go another 30 feet, and then another 25 feet. And I guess the red zone is what we were talking about is either you've gotten close enough to make a shot, which that's going to be dictated on your comfort level of shooting and the weapon that you have and all that other jazz we talked about last podcast, what shell you're using, the choke, etc. Or if the turkey then, because oftentimes not, I think once you get probably within 120, 100 yards, that's when you'll have that turkey make a decision. And he will start coming towards you. So the question is, okay, do I keep going to him or do I let him keep coming to me? For that, again, you got to read the situation, because I do think there's a little bit that helps with like the temperament of the turkey. If you stop as soon as he starts coming to you, I almost wonder if that kind of gives him like, oh, this bird's a little bitch. Like he was all talk, and now that I'm coming over to him.
Now he's not meeting me.
Right. So I think that can help, but also I think it can also fire him up a little bit more too. It's like if he starts coming to you and you keep coming to him, he's like, oh, you want to roll? Like, all right. So you got to kind of like feel that out. once he's coming to you, I don't push it. Don't like try to meet in the middle. But I think it's okay to still give him some realistic movements. Mind you, you got to be small. You cannot look over the decoy or around it. You got to look through the wings. You got to look through the feathers. Like oftentimes or not, we'll just kind of take 2 fingers and spread a couple of the feathers in the fan to peek through. And you're peeking with one eye. Like you gotta stay small, because now he's fixed on you. He's coming in and he's looking you up and down like, he's going to get in a fight with you, right?
Yeah.
So I would say once he breaks at 100 yards and he's 100 yards and in, that's when you really start thinking about, okay, what's his line of travel? Is he coming on my right? Is he coming on my left? Is he coming dead at me? Make sure you've got your gun at your side where it's ready and easy for you to grab. I let the ground carry the gun. I'm not going to hold that heavy thing. And then once he breaks that 50-yard mark, especially with us with our setup, that's when I'm starting to grab the gun and kind of get it ready, right? Maybe I've started to pull the buttstock up into my shoulder. Or if I'm laying down, I'm going to start kind of like trying to shimmy into position. And then once he gets past 30 yards, now it's up to you. You can take him at any time, or you can let him come in as close as you want. Me personally, keep coming until he stops, until he maybe sticks his head up, until he gives any indicator. Yeah, I'm going to let him come as far as he can, because once he breaks that, like I said, realistically 50 yards, but especially like 40 or 30 yards, it should be a dead turkey as long as you can pull it off. So once he gets within that 30-yard mark, maybe now that's where I'm doing a little more movement. I'm starting to bring the gun around from behind the turkey and getting it in my shoulder now. And now I've got the safety off, right? And so now all I have to do when I need to make the shot is I swing up and over or over and around, and it's done. And more times than not, too, especially those turkeys, they don't run away right away. They're kind of like, what? Ooh, what? Wait a second, mister.
Right.
You don't look right, and you get a shot off. As long as you don't like come out of there behind the decoy explosive, you're gonna
like
be
a
fine.
stripper out of a birthday cake. Don't do that.
Yeah. Logan learned that lesson the hard way with one of her reaps. Like, I will say this: once you've reached the red zone, they're committed to you. They're within your lethal shooting distance. When you go to make that shot, just make it smooth. Don't be herky-jerky. Don't swing up and over big ol' and aggressive, because that's going to make them run away. You're going to shock them. You're going to like boogeymaning them.
Yeah.
But if you just bring your gun around and you kind of come up and over slowly, or you come around the decoy slowly, they'll put up with it because they still don't know what's going on yet.
Right.
And then that'll make you have a better shot because you're not flailing and throwing and swinging heavy. You got your gun controlled. You got a good sight picture. Allows you to just nice and easy come around and then touch it off. So that's another thing that I think sometimes people take for granted. It's hard too, right? Because you're so excited. Oh, it's working. Holy shit. Here he is. He's right here. Oh my God. Like,
I got to shoot.
Yeah. And then you just make this explosive Muhammad Ali movement. And then the bird's like,
what?
Yeah. He goes, holy shit.
I'm getting out of here.
A dragon behind this turkey, and then on top of that, you are moving really fast and really aggressively, which is hard to like control your shot when you do that, because you got to and then grab yourself and make it, on top of the fact that now he's running or flying, depending on how close he is. And so, yeah, just nice and smooth. Smooth as fast.
A little tip for you guys that we've learned over the hard way over the last 4 or 5 years. The point of second view, so like you were talking about, when we locate a bird and we're like, all right, this one's in a reapable position, and we get down that waterway or we get through that timber, and now we're actually peeking up to look again, I would recommend potentially, if you're in a spot where you're okay with it, to use that turkey to shield yourself. You don't want to be like that heads and shoulders decoy, human being that's out there in a location where a turkey is not expecting to see a human being. So I would recommend that if you have that reaper decoy with you and you're in the spot where you're like, okay, I'm going to peek over this hill and they should be right here, take the turkey decoy with you and conceal your head and
Yes.
from your neck up, just because you're not going to be wanting to be out in the wide open using your pair of binoculars to try to relocate the turkeys, because it does take some time to get from, the truck or, wherever we're glassing from to the point where you're going to start your reap. And that time, the turkeys could move. They could have moved quite a good distance.
Right.
You know,
That's a great point.
because where you're not just going to pop up there and be there in a half a minute. It could be 1 minute. It could be 10 or 12,
Yep.
15 minutes, because you're trying to still be stealthy when you're approaching the point where you're like getting into this red zone that we're talking about. So I would recommend, when you're trying to locate them, to actually put the reap on, like your boots on the ground now you're going to go do it. Be careful what that first look looks like.
Yeah, and that right there is a good spot to talk about the difference between like Teddy and a fan. So the beautiful thing about Teddy always has a fan. So when you're peeking, thank you for bringing this up, because you're right. You know, you're in the waterway and you're like, he should be up on the top of this hill, or just over the crest.
Yeah.
Well, it's really hard to kind of like take Teddy and creep, but if you take the fan out of your decoy, or if you just have a fan, like you're saying, just slowly rise up with the fan, looking through the fan.
And keep in mind that your eyes are, depending on how big your forehead is and how big your hat is, your eyes are technically 4 or 5 inches down below the top of your head. So every little detail counts with turkeys. Like I said, we talked about this earlier. They've got a pair of binoculars strapped to their face for eyes, and they can pick you off from quite a good distance. So make sure you take every little bit of detail into consideration when you're taking that first look and making that peek to locate them.
You should just be looking just over the mids. You shouldn't be looking, very high on the back feathers, but the mid feathers is like when you split that fan, you want to be looking just right over the top of those. But so I guess that's
the do's.
The do's.
Yeah.
So do's of reaping, like I think I covered one with the herky-jerky movement. I kind of got into that, but that's a big one. The other thing to consider is you have to think about how big a turkey is. I've helped people and we've taken some people out. And again, Logan, I'm not throwing you into the bus. You've had some lessons of hard knocks here. When you go to reap turkeys, my wife she went out all on her own. I was filming her and I'm like, go get them. So she took Teddy and she starts going, and it's really easy to find yourself in a more comfortable position when you're stalking than you should be. And what do I mean by that? Like she's not short, she's 5'9", but like she probably went about 30 yards, and in that 30 yards, her crouch went from where Teddy was normal turkey height to in 30 yards, now his bottom is like a good 16, 18 inches off the ground. She's still behind Teddy, but just she's gotten more comfortable as she was reaping or if she was going out into the field. Now all of a sudden, there's a 16, 18 inch gap of air underneath Teddy. Not very realistic.
Right.
So you gotta really, I think the do's is make sure you consider how tall a turkey is. When you are going and when you're reaping, I don't care if you have a fan, a shield, or a full decoy, you have to stay low. A turkey's legs maybe are 10 inches, maybe. That's from the bottom of the breast when a turkey's in strut. So that's like Teddy's legs. We have him set up so he got a couple inches of clearance, and as long as he's about 1 to 3 inches above the grass or corn stalks or whatever, then you're fine.
Mm-hmm.
But just make sure you stay small. And oftentimes and not, you're going to be scooting on your knees. You're going to be literally crawling, or you're going to be in the most, thigh burning duck walk that you've ever been in. And just know that that's what it's going to take.
Yep. Any other do's for reaping turkeys specifically?
Take a call. Make sure you take your calls. Sometimes guys will reap and they won't have their call. But I would always recommend throw that diaphragm in, because that just allows you to now add a little bit of context to it. And, you don't want to be out there completely naked. Yes, his reaping is 90%, 95% visual. Usually I don't call at all, but I wouldn't go out there with that one. And also I do like wearing our turkey vest when you reap. It's a little bit bigger, and if you're like, I'm only going to reap, maybe take your box call out and maybe take a couple pot calls out so it's not so bulky in the front. But being able to, like, once you get out there, and kind of like the knee savers for catchers, you've seen those, you can kind of sometimes sit back on your haunches and on that seat, depending on where you have it, and give yourself a little bit of relief. Or sometimes you'll find yourself in a situation where I'm just going to sit Indian style behind the decoy, and you still have that pad of the vest. So I would still take that. The other do's,
I think a do for me is let the turkey do the work. If you've got a tom that's fired up and he sees you and he's coming, then, there's no reason for you to continue at him.
Correct.
Just let him come into your lap. And like you said, don't swing and make this big drastic movement. He's not expecting that. If you know you've got a turkey coming in and you know what direction he's coming from and he's coming aggressively, get in position for a shot. You have time. Use the turkey decoy, use the fan to conceal you, and gradually scoot out to one side, the left or the right side of it. Or, get your gun ready in the crotch of where his wing and his fan meet.
Mm-hmm.
Wherever you want, wherever that's comfortable, that's fine. Whether or not you're going to be on your belly prone shooting or on a knee shooting, that's totally up to you. But don't come over the top wailing or making this big, fast movement. Just be smooth with it, so that way, you're not alarming the turkey. You will put the turkey on edge. Like when he sees you and your gun, he will probably stop. But then that's
Perfect.
Up to you. That's the opportunity right there to make the shot in between, 5 yards and 55 yards, whatever you're comfortable with.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say avoid that big drastic movement. And then at the point where you're, trying to locate that turkey to actually put the reap on, I liked what you said about, when we were talking about Logan, how she kind of gradually stood up. Know where you are in relation to the turkey. So it's fine for you to walk through a waterway, like use it to your advantage. You can walk fully upright. And as you're going up that hill, it's still fine to walk or just maybe crouch down a little bit. But know where you are in relation to the turkey and what percentage of your body he can see. Because if you come up over a hill holding a turkey decoy at your waist and you're a turkey top with a person bottom, you're going to want to get down and crouch much sooner than that. So that way when you round up to the top of that hill, that the turkey is what the turkey
stays at the same height. Yeah.
Turkey stays at the same height, not like, oh, there he is. Now I'm going to drop down all of a sudden, and it may be too late. A hen could have seen you or putted, and that's another thing to keep in mind. If you're going at a group of turkeys versus a lone single gobbler versus a group of gobblers only without any hens, there's a couple farms that we hunt where the harem of hens is huge. There could be 20 or 30 of them out there.
Right.
And it's easy to pull one over on that many eyes. And as soon as one starts putting and running away, it's just kind of like whitetail.
It's up.
The jig is up. So that's one for
some don'ts. I think the biggest one is to make sure that you have exclusive access to your property. Safety is a big thing when it comes to reaping. There's horror stories that have been out there, and especially if you're on public ground. So that's something I just don't think it's worth the risk. Even with, I don't care if it's a fan or any of the above.
I believe that's illegal to do on public, at least in Illinois.
I know, but in the other states, it's not.
Oh, boy,
so
that's
one of
scary.
Travis's buddies,
that's really scary.
He wasn't even reaping. He was out in Nebraska, and he got shot. I think he had like 13 or 31. I know it was a 3 and a 1 BBs that they had to pull out of him. Thankfully, he was okay. But I think, like I said,
scary.
Reaping, the biggest don't is just be careful. All the farms that we reap on, we have 100% exclusive permission, and there's no doubt that we should be the only ones out there. Now, you can't avoid a trespasser. You can't avoid somebody who shouldn't be out there.
Mm-hmm.
There's always that random factor. But as long as you do the due diligence to make sure you're the only ones out there and this, that, and the other, you be safe about it. I think the most risky time to be reaping is not like in the open field, but it's like when you're getting in position. I feel like that is the most risky time for an accident to happen when reaping, because you don't quite see the turkey yet. The turkey's not going to shoot you. It's like, okay, you're walking through the waterway and maybe there's a hunter set up, and all of a sudden he looks over and there's a freaking fan coming over the hill 40 yards away.
Yep.
That's where it gets scary, because maybe he's in between you and the turkeys and you didn't see him, right? Because he's full camoed up.
Yeah.
That's where I think an accident could happen. If somebody shoots you when you're out in the middle of a field wide open, like Teddy's good, but he's not a freaking. I mean, if a human can tell the difference between Teddy and a real bird. The other thing that I was going to talk about, like for don'ts, like what not to do when reaping, is misjudging the distance of the bird. And I have done this where you start to reap, and let's say you're a couple hundred yards away, pretty standard, like 200, 150 yards away, and the bird's, he's coming. And it's like maybe they didn't charge in and he's just strutting in real slow, or you got a pair of toms that are kind of coming in, and it feels like they've been coming forever. And you're like, oh, he's definitely close enough now. And you take a pop shot, and realistically, the bird was like at 60 or 70 yards. Yeah, did he cut the distance in half or more? Sure he did. But you don't get caught up in the fact that, yeah, the bird's cut a lot of distance off, but he's still not within a killable range. So I think that's the big don't. Make sure you either are really good with your ranges or you have a rangefinder. I mean, once he breaks 50, you should be able to tell. And once he gets closer than that, then definitely should be able to tell. But I feel like those dangerous marks are like that 75 to 50, that 50 to 75 is where your mind can play tricks on you, because you're like, gosh, I'm 50, 60 yards off the timber, and he's come all the way across this field. He's got to be here, and that's where you can get caught up and burnt taking not necessarily a premature shot, but like a shot that's further than you should.
And just kind of thinking about all the turkeys that we've been able to reap so far, I'm going to say this with a big asterisk, because it's not possible to do what I'm about to say every single time in every single scenario. But I feel like most of the birds that we reap that are vigorously pissed off, that charge in, have mostly one thing in common, and that is that we get the drop on them. What do I mean by that? We see them out there, and then we are able to get into a grass waterway or work through the timber and be in the bird's lap without him knowing. There's some reaps that will start out, 300, 400 yards away when we're on that bubble, and sometimes it does work when we flash a decoy and they come boogieing in from that far. But like some of the birds that you've reaped, I think that the reason why they're so upset and so angry come charging in is because you get within the threshold of like when they're safe.
Mm-hmm.
Like if a turkey sees another turkey out there like 400 yards, it's an easy thing for a turkey to see. I mean, it's iridescent, it's going to be flashing color, the fan, the feathers, the whole nine. It's going to be shining like a little diamond out there, another turkey that is. But if you can break that barrier and you can get within like 150 yards using topography before that turkey sees you the first time, then all of a sudden you're a much more great threat, because he had no idea you were there. It's the difference between somebody in a scream mask at the end of your street that you can see slowly walking at you. You're like, oh, okay, that's just a dude in a scream mask. Like,
you
whatever.
Freaking weirdo.
Yeah. I was like, why'd Becky let Tommy out to play again? That kid's weird. He's 23. He shouldn't be living in that basement no more. But it's a difference between that and then somebody knocking on your door to your house and with the scream mask. Then that would scare me. Like if somebody lurched into my field of view, like right outside my door, that'd scare me. And that's the difference, I think, is when you're presenting a threat and you're that far away, it gives a turkey time to be like, okay, whatever. But versus like times like that one on the power lines, when you got into the turkey's lap, you were probably about 80 yards, 90 yards away when that sucker saw you.
And then it was just like,
yep, I'm coming.
Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
I'm going to beat your ass. Yep.
So if you can get to a position, like I said, not every scenario is going to work, but if you can get into a position where you're popping that bubble and you're sub, 150 and you can get in there real tight with them, I think that that's the scenario in which you're going to have a gobbler that's really going to play ball with you, because he's going to be like, I have no choice but to fight now.
Right.
There's no option for him anymore. You're right in his face at that point. So that would be my tip. If you can pull it off, like I said, big asterisk by that point. Any more don'ts?
No, I think just want to highlight, be safe. Be safe. Make sure that, you're with your gun. I think another big thing that's a good don't is as you're crawling or reaping, your gun is down low. Mind the tip of your barrel, right? It's really easy to shove something in the end of your barrel, dirt, mud, debris, anything. Just keep that in mind too, I think, is another thing. So, obviously safety with permission, with exclusivity, know that you're the only one out there. Mind the tip of your barrel as you're crawling and reaping, and then just don't get caught up in like the moment and take that shot premature.
Sure. Last tip that I have in my brain kind of floating around is just be cognizant of how large the thing is that you're using. A turkey fan is about 2 feet wide and about 16 inches tall. So if you are a average sized human being, that is obviously not going to conceal you. But if you can use it and lay on your belly and crawl over a hill, that could be a really good, useful tool for you. Things like Teddy, like you do not need a 3x3 foot reaper decoy like we have to reap a turkey. But if you want to take the time to make one, it is going to do a better job of concealing the entirety of your body versus a fan. It's going to enable you to go like right straight at a turkey out in the middle of the wide open with knowing for a fact that that turkey's not seeing a part of you, versus a fan. And now there are people that grab a fan and they'll go right at a turkey in an open field and they just walk right at them with like the fan covering their face. For whatever reason, sometimes that works. Maybe that's just a turkey that's never seen a human being before and gets really fired up and upset that, there's a turkey on his turf and they see the fan and they just come running. But for us, I think the majorities of the turkeys that we're hunting probably have seen a human being before. And I would say that the fan doesn't quite work like that open. For us, right. In the open.
Right.
It works to flash them. It works when you have an advantage in topography and you can just kind of peek over a hill with one, but I would not recommend going right at a turkey in an open field with the fan. That's not going to conceal your body very well.
No.
So that'd be my last one, is just be mindful of how big you are in relativity to the size of a turkey. So, do you have anything else?
No. I mean, hopefully this helps you guys if you're going to reap this year. It's addicting and it's fun. I mean, we say it's a
ton of fun.
Shooting turkeys in self-defense. I think once you do it, you'll find out that it takes your turkey hunting to the next level. Now, don't get me wrong. We set up on them on the roost, but it also opens the door to a lot of those afternoon opportunities.
Yep.
And it just allows you to be more aggressive and cover more ground. So if you haven't done it, try it. I think you'll get bit by the bug.
Sure. Last thing, I guess, as you were talking about that, the afternoon opportunities, most of the turkeys that we're reaping, just to be clear, we're not hearing them. We're more so seeing them, locating them. So this is a point in the day where, most of the gobbling has slowed down. Most of the calling has slowed down. If you're turkey hunting and been doing it for any duration of time, you know that on the roost, that's typically where they hammer. They'll pitch down. They'll continue hammering. They'll get linked up with that group of hens. And that's the time that we're trying to set up and kill them and call the turkeys to us. But if that fails, then this is what we're doing in that afternoon, trying to locate one out in the middle of a field. And we're not like calling to them necessarily, like to let them know where our position is. Bring a call with, like you said, just in case, maybe they work off the field. You want to try to get their attention, bring them back to the field for a reap. But we're not calling to these turkeys and letting them know that we're coming as we're doing this reap. So I don't feel like we talked about that. I just wanted to highlight that. So would you rather eat tag soup with a bow or a gun? But either way, you're eating tag soup.
I guess it doesn't matter. I would rather eat tag soup with a bow.
Okay. Box call or slate?
Slate.
Why?
I think I can do quite a bit more tonal range on a slate, especially I really like a glass slate. Box calls are fantastic. They're loud. They pitch well. You can gobble with them pretty well. I don't think maybe if you can gobble with a slate call, send me a video. I'd love to see it. But I think
what does that even look like?
I have no idea. But like I just know that with a slate call, my tonal range is wider. I can really get some real nice, crisp calls out of it. And I can switch easy. I can cut to a purr.
Get some really good purrs on a slate, I would say.
I can cluck. I can yelp, obviously. It just, to me, that slate just, I don't know. Hands down, if you told me one or the other, I would grab the slate.
I think for locating turkeys, though, my answer would be a box.
Yeah.
Seems like just a louder call
it is.
Overall.
Yep.
A diaphragm or a slate?
Diaphragm.
Why for that one?
I can do everything with a diaphragm, hands-free. And again, I think, slates do come into play, and I use them a lot. But a diaphragm, it's what I go to.
So by the transitive property, if you like B better than A, and you like C better than B, then you must like B better than A, or C better than A, I think, which leads me to my next one, which is box or diaphragm. So because you would rather have a slate than a diaphragm, you'd rather have a diaphragm than a slate, then by the transitive property, you would rather have a diaphragm than a box.
That's correct.
Okay. The next one. What would you most want to hunt turkeys with if you... would you most want to hunt turkeys if you could not hunt them in Illinois? My answer to that one would be literally anywhere else.
Yeah.
Turkey's a pain in the ass.
Yeah. I don't know. Texas, what I think would be difficult to hunt turkeys in. I don't know. It'd be flat. I mean, there's parts of Texas that are green, but I don't know. Kansas, Missouri, any of the Midwestern states, kind of what I know. It'd be a lot of fun.
Sure. How about this one? Take a 410 hunting with you with 3 shots in there, or a 20 gauge with 1 shot.
20 gauge.
With 1 shot?
Yeah.
You better make that shot count, Chachi.
Yep.
A 410 with 3 shots.
20 gauge.
I'd probably pick the 20 gauge too. You get out there and touch them. I don't even know what the killable distance you'd be in with the 410. You'd probably have to be like 30 yards and in. I have no idea. You'd have to whack them right in the head, right?
People kill them. Like I don't know, man. I'd rather have the bigger shell, more BBs, more powder. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So that kind of brings us to the end here. A little bit of a couple announcements before we go here. The Whitetail Legacy podcast. This week, Cody and Homie are talking about the biggest 5 bucks, or not the biggest, but just the bucks that they've killed over the last 5 years. So they've killed some amazing whitetails in the last 5 years, and they're talking about time, wind, temp, everything you need to know about the hunt and how it went down. And it's kind of just a big overview of the deer they've killed, how they've killed them, when they've killed them, and a kind of hypothesis of why they think they killed them that day on those conditions. So that's going to be good. You can catch that at 11 o'clock on Wednesday. Our discount code. So if you want those, you're going to have to join up with the Last Breath Inner Circle. That's our Facebook group. That's where we post all of our info, all of our content, all of our stuff first. So we have some really, really good ones lined up this year from a lot of great companies that support our podcast, support our show, and the things that we do. So we've went back and forth quite a bit with our sponsors in negotiations this year, fighting for, some pretty good discount codes, that aren't just, that 10% free shipping or 5% free shipping or 15% or whatever.
Something that's going to save you guys some money.
Yeah, something that's like substantial, like, oh, okay, this is better than like a fire sale that they would do on their website. So some of those are extremely generous, so big shout out to them. Thank you for that. And like I said, Last Breath Inner Circle, that's going to be where you can get those. Our launch party is coming up. It's, towards the end of March right now. So we got April, May, and June. So we've got about 3.5, almost 4 months out, less than 4 months now, until the launch party on July 23rd.
I hope Sleepy Joe gives us permission to have it.
Sleepy Joe?
Yeah, he's the last thing, on the 4th we might be able to gather in small gatherings.
Well, luckily,
we're having this come hell or high water.
I don't think there's any question of that. I think that the state that we're having it in, I mean, Iowa's pretty much, Iowa's governor has pretty much shut down everything that she possibly can to resist COVID mandates. So I'm not worried about it. We should be good and cleared to go.
Yep, it's gonna be a heck of a stretch of like 10 days because you're getting married the weekend before, and then we have the launch party at the same,
basically the same venue.
Yeah, they're attached, but yeah, at the Adler Theater, July 23rd. We're gonna get ready to start getting our tickets printed. So it's coming here. It's coming here fast.
Yep, just stay wired in with us on social and here on our podcast, and we'll tell you where you can get your tickets, when you can get your tickets, and we're gonna have a interesting system this year. I know that we've got some friends that, obviously live far out of state, and I've got some ideas on how we could do a system and create a system for them to basically set up like a digital will call, if you will. Mm-hmm. So like a guy like Lemansky, obviously it's not in the cards for him to drive up from Tennessee to get a ticket, or for Pete to come up here from Louisiana to get a ticket to drive back. You know what I'm saying? So I think if we can be crafty about that, it'll get lots more people that it's not feasible, on your way driving home from work. So like all of our friends and stuff local, they can go and stop by Easy Living in Milan on their way back home from work. But somebody that lives in like Chicago, like Alan, I hope he's not going to drive to Milan just to get a ticket and then turn right back around to go to Chicago.
So what we're alluding to is this event is completely free. The tickets are free, but there's a limited amount. I mean, we can only host so many people at the venue. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of a first come, first serve deal. And so what we do is we'll have multiple locations within the Quad City and the greater Quad City area where you can pick up tickets. The tickets get you admission and also get you entered into all the giveaways. And some of the, like you were saying, some of our friends in the past, we've mailed them out or we've reserved them. We're trying to figure out a system that'll be a little bit better for those people. Now, if you live within 20 minutes of Easy Living and you ask us to reserve you some tickets, you might catch a little bit of shit.
Yeah, if you get on our will call system and you type in, Beverly Johnson for whatever reason, and say that you live in Milan, I'm going to delete your name off of that system, and you're going to go and pick one up because I'm not hand delivering you a ticket, and you're not getting the option to get one at the door. If you can drive 5 blocks to Easy Living and get one.
Right. So anywho, we're excited. This is going to be, it's going to be our biggest event yet. I mean, we have it. Yeah. We'll preach it to you about it when it gets a lot closer, but there is a ton of stuff that we're going to give away, some incredible films, and the atmosphere is electric. So if you're in the Quad City area and you want to do something on Friday the 23rd, put in your calendars. You need to be there.
All right, sounds good. That wraps us up, takes us to the end. We'll see you next Monday at 6 a.m. Don't waste it.